Ever get that feeling like you just want to, see right through people, like figure out what they're really thinking? Well, okay, there are actual techniques to like analyze people. We're diving deep into that today. Body language, secrets, hidden values, this crazy thing called the drama triangle. It's going to be fascinating. First up, body language. It's like everyone's sending these signals, but we don't know how to read them. Do you know, like the way someone positions their torso can actually show how they feel about you? Say you ask for directions, right? And the person gives you a quick answer, but their body is still facing away. Maybe not so comfortable. You look at it's like they're saying, "Get out of here," but with their shoulders and handshakes. Forget that whole firm grip equals confidence thing. Sometimes it's the opposite. I once met this CEO, super successful guy, but his handshake was like a limp fish. Totally threw me off. Later, a friend who knew him was like, yeah, he's actually really shy, overcompensates by being like loud and opinionated. Yeah, see? Deceptive. Then there's oculasics, all about eye movements. It's crazy how much our eyes give away. Like, pupils dilate not just with fear, but also with desire. So next time you're on a date and you see those pupils getting bigger, well, you might be onto something. Just saying. Could just be the lighting, though. Who knows? And those quick side-to-side eye movements. Could mean someone's fibbing or maybe just trying to remember something. This one time I was interviewing this guy for a job, and his eyes were darting all over the place. Turns out he was just nervous, not a liar. Poor guy. Ever notice how some people just get way too close? Like invading your personal space bubble. Could be a power play, trying to dominate the interaction. Had this happened at a networking event, this guy practically draped himself over me while we were talking. I literally took a step back and pretended to get a drink. Boundaries, people. But analyzing people goes way deeper than just physical stuff, right? It's about understanding their values and needs, the stuff that really drives them. The book lays out these 6 basic human needs we all share: certainty, variety, significance, connection, growth, and contribution. Pretty universal, right? We all crave these things to some extent. But here's the thing. The way we prioritize those needs, that tells you a lot about a person. Like someone who's all about significance. It might be super competitive, always trying to be the best, while someone who values connection above all else might be like a total people pleaser, always putting others first. It was like a light bulb went off for me when I realized this. I used to clash with this friend all the time, always arguing about the smallest things. Then it hit me, we were just prioritizing different needs. She was all about certainty, needed everything planned and predictable. Me. I thrive on variety. I love spontaneity. No wonder we were driving each other crazy. Values tie into this too big time. Think about it, the music someone blasts in their car. Could it actually say something about their personality? Apparently, jazz aficionados are supposed to be all extroverted and creative. Makes you wonder, right? Do they gravitate to jazz because they're like that? Or does the music shape them? It's a chicken or the egg thing. There's this study I read, said people who love classical music tend to be more introspective and analytical, and country music fans supposedly more down to earth and conventional. I'm not saying it's always true, but it's fun to consider, right? Like next time you're at a party and someone's rocking out to heavy metal, might explain a few things. But here's where it gets really interesting. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of conflict with certain people? Like no matter what you do, it always ends in an argument. That's where the drama triangle comes in. It's like these 3 roles: the persecutor, always blaming, the victim, feeling helpless, and the rescuer, constantly trying to fix things. We often develop these roles way back in childhood, based on family dynamics and all that. Like maybe you had a super critical parent, so you learned to play the victim to avoid conflict. Or maybe you always had to take care of your siblings, so you became the rescuer. Sound familiar? But here's the kicker. We can unconsciously slip into these roles even as adults, even when it's totally not serving us. I'll admit, I've been guilty of this myself. I tend to jump into rescuer mode way too easily. Like this one time my friend was having a total meltdown about this work project, and instead of just listening and being supportive, I went full-on fixer, giving her all this advice she didn't ask for. She got super defensive, and we ended up having this huge fight. It was like I was unconsciously trying to save her, but it totally backfired. So next time you're in a heated argument, take a second to check yourself. Are you playing the victim, guilt-tripping everyone? Or maybe you're the one persecuting, blaming others for your own problems. It's not always easy to admit, but recognizing these patterns is the first step to breaking free from this whole drama triangle thing. And the good news is, you can break free. It takes effort, self-awareness, maybe a few therapy sessions, but you could rewrite the script and step into healthier, more empowered roles. Instead of persecuting, you become assertive, standing up for yourself without attacking. Instead of playing the victim, you allow yourself to be vulnerable, asking for support when you need it. And instead of rescuing everyone, you focus on being caring and supportive without taking on their problems as your own. Honestly, this stuff is life-changing.
Yeah.
You build better relationships, communicate more effectively, and you just feel more, in control of your own destiny. It's like you're finally breaking free from those old patterns and stepping into your true power. Okay, so before we were talking about that whole drama triangle thing, remember, and how to escape it, right?
Yeah.
Stepping into those healthier roles. The book calls this the winner's triangle. It sounds kind of cheesy, but it makes sense. You're basically shifting from all that reactivity and conflict to like proactive communication and mutual respect and all that. They had those stories of Sarah and Nigel, remember? Really showed that whole drama to winner transformation. Sarah was like the classic persecutor.
Yeah.
Super controlling, always criticizing everyone. It came from, a rough childhood. Always felt like she had to be the strong one. But then she met this guy who, bless his heart, gently called her out on it. Showed her how it was pushing people away, preventing her from having real intimacy. It wasn't easy. But Sarah started to let go of that persecutor role and embrace being vulnerable. Learn to say what she needed directly without all the anger and blame. Pretty inspiring, huh? Then there was Nigel. Total opposite of Sarah. He was the ultimate victim. Always helpless, expecting others to take care of him. Came from having like super affectionate parents, but no boundaries, so
Yeah.
he was kind of stuck in this perpetual childhood. He struggled with everything, jobs, relationships, even just like basic adulting. Then he found this book, read about the drama triangle, and bam, light bulb moment. He finally got why he was so unhappy and started working on being more assertive. Learned to communicate his feelings, set boundaries, take responsibility for his own actions, talk about a transformation. Now you might be thinking, okay, great stories, but what about me, right? The point is, we all have these patterns, these roles we've learned. Even if our upbringing wasn't as dramatic as Sarah's or Nigel's, those early experiences, they shape how we interact with the world, So the key is becoming aware of those patterns. Which role do you tend to play? Once you see it, you can choose to step out of that drama triangle and into the winner's triangle. It's not about blaming your parents or your past or anything. It's about taking ownership of your present and creating a better future. And you know what? This stuff isn't just for your personal life. It's super relevant at work, too. Think about those office dynamics, the power plays, the gossip, the backstabbing. It's like a drama triangle playground. The book has a whole chapter on analyzing people at work, full of like juicy insights. It talks about reading your coworkers' body language, understanding their motivations, figuring out how to, play the game without losing yourself. Have you ever noticed how some people just radiate confidence when they walk into a room? Shoulders back, head high, making eye contact. It's like they own the place. And then there are those who slouch, avoid eye contact, fidget constantly. They might be perceived as insecure or untrustworthy. Even if they're brilliant at their jobs, it's crazy how much those nonverbal cues can influence people's perceptions, right? The book also breaks down different types of bosses, which is super helpful. You get the reliable boss, the charismatic boss, the micromanaging boss, even the paranoid boss. Each one has their own quirks and challenges, but by understanding their motivations and how they communicate, you can figure out how to deal with them.
Yeah.
And not get fired. But remember, even though analyzing people can give you an advantage at work, it's important to be objective. Don't judge.
Just because someone has a certain body language or communication style, it doesn't mean they're a bad person or a bad worker. It just means they're different, right? Okay, let's be real though. Analyzing people isn't just about work, it's about relationships too, especially romantic ones. Ever been on a date and just had that gut feeling something was off? Or maybe you met someone amazing at first, but then, you know, their true colors started to show. Yeah, we've all been there. The book has this whole chapter on assessing romantic links, how to read those early signs and avoid getting into relationships that are like destined for disaster. One thing to watch for is how your potential partner treats others, especially people they consider, beneath them. Do they treat waiters with respect? Are they kind to their family and friends?
Because how someone treats those they see as less powerful, that can be a huge red flag. It's like if they're willing to be rude to a server, imagine how they'll treat you once the honeymoon phase is over. Another thing to watch is how they handle challenges. Do they stay calm under pressure or freak out and blame everyone else? Can they own their mistakes, or are they always playing the victim? These patterns, they tend to repeat, so pay attention to those early signs. But analyzing people and relationships, it's not just about avoiding the bad ones. It's also about building stronger connections with the people you care about by understanding their needs, values, communication style. You can learn to communicate better, resolve conflicts, and, deepen your bonds. It's like having this superpower to decode human behavior, right? You can use that knowledge to create more fulfilling relationships. But hold on, there's still one more piece to this puzzle. Those tiny, almost invisible cues that can tell you even more about a person. We're talking micro expressions, subtle language patterns, even how your social media profile can betray your hidden self. We'll get into all that after the break, so stay tuned. Okay, so we've covered like a lot, right? Body language, values, that whole drama triangle thing. But now let's get into the really subtle stuff, the tiny cues that most people wouldn't even notice. It's like, the stuff that separates the amateurs from the pros, the casual observer from the human lie detector. We're talking micro expressions, subtle language patterns, even how your social media profile can give you away. First up, those micro expressions. Ever see someone's face just do this weird little twitch? Gone in a flash. That, my friend, is a micro expression. It's a fleeting and voluntary expression that betrays their true feelings, even if they're trying to mask it. The book goes deep on these, and it's fascinating. Like a tiny little lip curl. Could be disgust. A quick eyebrow raise. Maybe surprise or skepticism. You gotta be super observant to catch them, but once you do, it's like you've got this secret decoder ring for their inner world. Remember this one time I was at this business meeting, right? And the guy was pitching this big, bold idea. Everyone seemed impressed, nodding along. But I swear I saw this micro expression on his face. Just this subtle tightening of the jaw. Like he was holding back some serious doubt. And you know what? My gut feeling was right. A few weeks later, the whole project imploded. He hadn't been honest about the risks. Micro expressions, man, they don't lie. But it's not just our faces that spill the beans, the words we use, how we phrase things, it all tells a story. Did you know, older people tend to use more positive words than younger people? Makes sense, right? More life experience, focusing on the good stuff. And get this, the ratio of positive to negative words someone uses. It's actually a pretty good predictor of how happy they are overall. So if you're hanging out with someone who's always complaining, always negative, well, their negativity might be rubbing off on you, something to think about. Oh, and then there's pronouns. This is fascinating. Apparently, people who are feeling insecure and intimidated, they tend to overuse I. It's like they're trying to assert themselves, take up space. And then there's you, using you a lot, especially in arguments. It can be a sign of blame, accusation. Had this happen with an ex. Every little disagreement became you did this, you made me feel that. Exhausting. And honestly, looking back, it was a big red flag. Pronouns, man, they're tiny but mighty. But here's where things get really interesting and maybe a little creepy, The book argues that social media is like this giant public display of our personality. Think about it. Your Facebook profile, your Instagram feed, it's all curated, right? We're trying to project a certain image. But even with all that filtering, there are still clues everywhere. What kind of photos do they post? Are they all selfies or are they capturing experiences? Who do they follow? What are they liking and commenting on? It's a digital trail of their interests, their values, even their insecurities. I used to have this friend who was super into posting inspirational quotes, all about positivity and self-love. But in real life, her life was kind of a mess. Drama with relationships, job hopping. It was like her online persona was this idealized version of herself, maybe trying to convince everyone, maybe even herself, that she had it all figured out. So what's the point of all this?
Well, for one thing, it means we're constantly sending out signals about who we are and whether we realize it or not. And the more we understand these signals, the big ones and the tiny ones, the better we can navigate our relationships, our careers, basically our whole lives. Analyzing people, it's not about judging or manipulating, right? It's about understanding ourselves, understanding others. And that understanding, that's powerful stuff. It helps us build better relationships, communicate more effectively, navigate this whole crazy human experience with more, grace and empathy. It's like the more you know about people, the less scary the world becomes. You start to see the patterns, the motivations, the humanity behind it all. That can be pretty comforting, honestly. So keep your eyes peeled, your ears open, and that mind of yours curious. There's a whole world of fascinating information hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring those mysteries of human behavior.